Live, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to DappRadio episode number 2. Today we have a very, very special guest, Mr. Ekin Tuna from Oasis Protocol Foundation. And today on the show, we really have a treat. I know y'all are doing some amazing things over at Oasis. We have a joint venture that we'll be talking a little bit about later, but really a treat to get to chat with you. Would love to start us off by understanding a little more about yourself, and maybe you could tell us, give us some backstory on yourself and then Oasis as a whole.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ben, for having me and having us here. Really appreciate the opportunity. We've been working with DappRadar for quite some time, and really always a pleasure. There's never been a always a pleasure. Yeah. So yeah, I'm Ekin Tuna. I'm the business development lead at the foundation. So personally, kind of a privacy maximalist when it comes to user data, when it comes to kind of like processing of different data in a computational environment. So that's kind of the like why I do what I do. So at Oasis, I grow the ecosystem. I bring in companies that want to build in our network, and make sure that they have a good experience in doing so. So that includes everything from finding resources to them, mentoring, and all sorts of things like that. One of the things is the DappRadar Accelerator, and that's a program that allows the developers to come in, bring their idea to fruition, and we provide the support and some grants to them as well. But Oasis protocol itself is a layer 1 blockchain. It's a scalable, it's privacy enabled, and basically we started building in 2018, so it's been 4 years already, building, keeping things moving on the development front. And yeah, we've had some very exciting updates coming in, last year, this year. So I don't know, I can put, the elevator pitch of all the cool stuff that we've done, but, like just to keep it short, like a couple of highlights, we raised our ecosystem fund at the end of last year. So we were able to raise, currently it's around 300 million, something close to that, a bit less. We recently had a Damask update. So our network, it improved we can go into like the technicalities later, but a very technical update that improved significantly the performance. And also we increased the validator set. So now we have 120 validators. So the network keeps on becoming more and more decentralized. And, this year, like we're really like privacy focused. So when we look at the space of crypto and blockchain, we think about the user data. So, in blockchains, all the data is open and it's kind of visible to everybody. So, when I make a transaction in like, let's say Ethereum, like everybody can go into my account and see like what are exactly my transactions, what am I owning, and these kind of things. So we're kind of looking at it in a way that like that data is precious, and it sometimes it's good to give public, but sometimes it's good to give tools to people to make sure that they can also protect their privacy in that regard. So that's kind of what we're focusing on in the long run. And we also recently did launch EVM compatible environment, which is called Emerald. And that is to kind of allow also the users who want to code in Solidity, want to build those EVM compliant applications. Like we built that, and we have seen some interesting traction. So we see more and more projects coming in every week. We also have a WebAssembly based environment where there are more privacy and Rust based smart contracts. But I don't want to get into too deep on the technical side right now. So that's it. Yeah.
Amazing. So privacy, that's the name of the game here. And what I think is so interesting about what y'all have built is we've seen different narratives in crypto and in the blockchain. And there has been this narrative of a not complete anonymity being possible before, because everything was kind of through pseudonym. So it was pseudonymous, but if you could kind of figure out, who someone was, then you could tie it to a wallet, and it was But then there was also this idea of everything being very publicly visible on a blockchain. And so these things kind of came together, and it feels like it's almost competing in a way of total transparency of a blockchain, but then people on the internet like usernames and screen names and alts and pseudonyms, especially gamers. So maybe you can kind of talk us through how Oasis is thinking about this, is approaching this, and how does it actually work? And let's maybe start from first principles of like, okay, we have a blockchain, but we also now have privacy. Like, how do these things? It seems like that's almost competing in a way, but maybe you can help clear that up for us.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. It was like kind of my epiphany on this topic was like it was a few years ago. I before Oasis, we were working on some stuff, and essentially a lot of the stuff was to trace blockchain transactions. So when you take like the Bitcoin chain, and what we noticed in the landscape and all these um, like compliance companies, so we know like Elliptic or Chainalysis and many others, how essentially the like how it works, like why there is a let's put it like this, why there is an issue with privacy in this space, even though like when original like when Satoshi wrote it, like anybody can be pseudonymous and all of that stuff. But like how it goes is like the data aggregation essentially happens from all over like the open source of internet. So it goes from forum nicknames posting Bitcoin, Ethereum, so on addresses. It goes on to the network layer. So when you have actually the nodes making transactions in the network, you can generally like triangulate which is the node that the transaction originated from. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's a computer of a user, but it can be a wallet service provider. It can be some sort of a validator, whatever that is. Um, so there's the online data, and then there's the network layer data to geolocate IP addresses. Um, and then essentially you have the on-chain transactions, and there's where like a lot of cluster analysis comes in. So kind of like how that all ties into is to like to be able to generate like entities out of all of this. So you have one entity that belongs to all these different data points, and then you're able to connect them to each other. And we kind of like there's a realization like at some point like that actually it offers like the best kind of experience for financial freedom for people around the world. Like no technology has been before offering similar things. Like essentially like the DeFi stuff that we have nowadays is something that like bankers in like early 2000s had, and that was the like you could run an investment bank on this kind of things. And nowadays anybody can have that. NFT similar thing, you can actually generate digital content that you own, which was before never possible because you cannot actually authenticate that digital piece of art or content, whatever it is. But so like this kind of, because of this ability to like collect all this user data, trace it, tie it to like financial transactions, it poses some challenges as well. So the challenges are, like when the user had like they become a node in a graph that's a vast spider web collecting all the data, and that allows like we've seen like all sorts of negative impacts out of that. But so how we approach this is we've developed a way to run transactions and run smart contracts in something called a trusted execution environment. So when you look at a trusted execution environment, it's like you take your phone, for example, and inside your phone, inside the processor of the phone, there's a chip or a part of that chip, which is something that nobody can read. Like even if you have the phone and you get into the hardware, you cannot read the contents what is inside there because it's encrypted very strongly. What you can do, however, is to make sure that whatever you run inside that space runs correctly. You can verify that. That's like obviously there's like a lot of cryptography wizards who make all of this happen, and there is no way I can explain why, but we can assume that's the case. But so basically, what we kind of thought is like what if you put like the transactions, the processing of that, or a smart contract inside there, it would make it basically so that we have like we are a proof of stake network. So proof of stake means that you vote on based on your stake, and essentially you get distributed like to be able to produce blocks according to your share of the network. But so we have 120 validators nowadays, and so when they run in our privacy enabled environments, and we have multiple environments, we can talk about the architecture later, but when they run in that privacy enabled environment, what the developer of an application is able to do, well, first of all, the validators themselves, so the nodes supporting the network, they have to support this Intel SG-axis, what we're using currently. So they have to support the trusted execution environment. And when they support it, the developer can choose that basically like which part of the code runs inside that environment. And that's so like what's really amazing of this kind of this long-term vision that we have, and this is what we're building, is to enable developers to kind of build those applications that in the end like allow to really guarantee user privacy and give users control of their own data.
Okay, so everything is not actually being forced into like this privacy ultra secret mode. It's
Yeah.
the developers can actually choose which pieces of what they're developing they want to put into this, this privacy enabled piece, and what they want to keep out. And so by doing that, it's up to the actual developers who are building the dapps, building the applications, building everything. They can choose, and they can then make the decision, okay, based on who we think our users are, and then once we have users, based on what our community wants, we can kind of give and take based on what they need and what they want, instead of it just being like 100% one or the other. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
So, that's one of the environments we have. And then we have an EVM compatible environment that is exactly like the standard Ethereum development environment. And actually, that's what the DappRadar Accelerator is also focusing on. So we want to offer, tools for developers that want to focus on different things.
Understood. So I want to dig into this a little bit more. So for the privacy enabled environment, or I think of it as like partitioning different pieces of what you're building. So like for
Hmm.
the privacy piece, when you're building your dapps, and you're thinking about how to build with privacy in mind, first of all, maybe you could go into how does that actually work. I mean, right now I'm envisioning in my mind like, okay, you put this piece interacts, and it with the privacy enabled functionality, and then it's like getting sucked into like this black box of just privacy, and then everything else is over here. But so for the sake of better understanding than that, like how does that actually work? And maybe we can go into like, when you say private, how private?
Okay, these are very good questions. So let me start by we need to look a bit about our network architecture so that we can understand how this actually works. So let me explain so Oasis Network is a network that has a shared consensus layer. So that shared consensus layer essentially allows just basic transactions from accounts to accounts to happen. Some voting for the governance because we have an on-chain governance mechanism to update code. Um, and what we've done is we've separated this consensus layer from the execution environments. So the execution environments have a separate technical configuration, each of them. And basically, the so each of these so let's say we can imagine that the consensus layer has its own set of validator nodes that validate the network and process transactions or produce the blocks. And each of the other ones, so this kind of layer twos essentially, they have their own set of validators too. which are for, all sensible purposes usually shared. So they're same as the consensus, at least in our EVM environment. And then in the privacy enabled environment, there is specific technical requirements that have to be taken into account. So that is, supporting hardware that has Intel SGX capabilities, and then that actually allows to support it on that. But when you imagine this, you can imagine there's a flat line, which is the consensus layer, and then there's all these other chains that kind of anchor into it. So how it then works is the anchoring itself is periodical, depending on the developer, how frequently they do want to do that. And then because everything needs to be interoperable. Like composability is the thing that kind of determines the developer experience, on all these kind of multi-chain environments. So what we've done is focus on the experience to kind of transferring, let's say, rows, which is our native token. So transferring rows from the consensus layer into the other paradigms. And when I say paradigm, the paradigms are the layer 2. So we are calling them paradigms like parallel runtimes. So when you transfer assets to different paradigms, we focused on that experience of being good so that the tokens can transfer nicely. And also what we're coming up in our next update, somewhere later this year, is to enable cross-paradigm communication. So this is where things get really interesting. So you're asking how it really works, because some applications maybe don't have a privacy enabled thing and some maybe have. So this is where we see it working. So if you think about an application that would require privacy, so let's say KYC of a wallet. So maybe a specific wallet has to be, some sort of a DeFi protocol wants to know that their users are identified and they are KYC compliant people. So there can be a module, and this is a completely hypothetical scenario, but there can be a module, let's say, in the privacy enabled environment that allows to process any kind of, let's say, sensitive data and return the answer from processing this. Because what we also built is the ability, essentially, well, actually what the Intel SGX does, or the trusted execution environment, is to allow running computation without knowing what the data is that it's being run on. So it's possible to get data, let's say, encrypted on an encrypted database, transfer it inside the trusted execution environment, decrypt it, run a process on it, return the answer, and delete the data. This is something that is not there. There isn't other projects who are doing it in exactly the same way that we are. And the interesting part is that this allows to generate a composable architecture. When we combine this with the cross-paradigm communication, it allows essentially like a normal EVM app to call a function on the other chain and check if the address that is trying to interact with them is actually KYC already checked, and then send it back the results. And this is something that kind of allows to generate modular privacy and composability across our ecosystem.
Okay, so basically there is this space, for lack of a better term, for privacy enabled space, and you can then, so it seems like it's all on the data level that this happens, where the data comes in, it's decrypted, the functions do whatever they need to do, they get the answer, and they return the answer and delete the data. So there's actually no privacy issues, because there's no data for there to necessarily need to have privacy on at the end of the day once everything's completed.
Yes.
Okay.
This is yeah.
Okay, so then because everything's connected through the base layer, then that enables all of the different, I want to say derivatives, but everything that stems from this one base layer, then they can all talk to each other. And there's a lot higher degree or a lot better ability for them to reference each other's information because there's this privacy layer. And so you don't have to worry about, oh, do I need to worry about privacy here or user data there? You don't have to worry about that. You can actually just go and do the function you need to do, collect the answer that you need to collect without ever having to worry about the privacy issue. So it actually enables greater functionality, and it allows for all the different participants within the greater network to play very nicely with each other because they don't have to worry about that issue of privacy. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because yeah, coming down to like really the original issue of all this data aggregation and generating like all the, large graphs of data and identifying people, who do they talk to, who do they send money to, which like online forum has this address talked to, and how do you link them together? Like all of that is great from like, for advertisers, for example. But it doesn't leave a lot of choice for the user on, how are they really being influenced. So kind of enabling that is, to some extent, that is like what I think like Web3 is about in some areas. There's a lot of other stuff to it, but this is pretty core to it, to be honest. Yeah.
That's incredible. So, based on that innovation, what have y'all been able to create not only from your own base layer, but then the dApps and everything that's being built on top of that? What innovation have you been able to create as a result of this underlying privacy innovation that wasn't possible before?
So this is something that we're working currently with a few design partners, and are building those applications right now. So l- let me give a couple of examples of the stuff that's being worked on. So in this kind of technology, if we think about like randomness, that's a one core component that's important. So there's a number of things that require randomness. So there can be, some, let's say like algorithm components, they require to have that. But usually that, it's something like, for example, games of chance. That's one aspect that's important, because if you don't have verifiable, provable randomness, um, it's an issue naturally. And currently, how that's kind of being done at the moment is using a third-party Oracle provider many times in smart contracts. But this allows it to do it in a different way without having to do necessarily all the data transfer. So you can do it inside the machine, which generates an additional component of security. Another interesting aspect is looking at like NFTs. So you can have an NFT that you can purchase from somebody, but necessarily not to see the whole NFT before it is purchased. So you can have privacy component in, because currently when we go to any NFT marketplace, you see the whole thing. You know already what you're buying. But this generates a way to, exclude people from, because that's sometimes how value is generated, about scarcity and exclusivity. You can bring that really to the NFT ecosystem. Um, and I think a third thing that's being worked on, which is really, really cool. Um, that's the kind of, we see a lot of issues in MEV. So that's the minor extractable value. So things like front running transactions in a network. So when you have a DeFi protocol, essentially, I mean, when you have a DeFi protocol, there's somebody in the network who monitors the transactions that are going in and out, from the memory pool, and they look and they basically compare, if I replace this address with my address and I run exactly the same transactions, will my balance on my account be higher or lower? And this is something that's not possible to do, because we've seen all the issues with like the Ethereum gas prices, and this is one of the fundamental reasons for it, because people are competing to send transactions, to be the first in line, because then they really get the opportunity of making that transaction. So this is not possible in a privacy enabled environment. So essentially, these are the kind of things that are we're working on and building currently. But that being said, the privacy environment is still in testnet, so we are building this right as we speak. And what we do hope is that there's a lot of developers who want to come and innovate with us, and they want to build something really, really cool on this. And we welcome them, and we have, we have a grant program, we have acceleration programs, and we have an ecosystem fund that is all geared towards supporting developers in, regardless of what stage they are, like they are geared to support them and give them the resources that they need.
I love that. So I think now's a great time to talk about our partnership here, the DappRadar and Oasis Accelerator Program, because we did just extend the deadline. And so, I want to talk a little bit about that. Before we jump into there, I want to talk about how important it is to encourage developers to come onto a base layer with innovation like this. When you have an innovation like what y'all have done, and you have now like I said before, a base layer, what you've enabled is a set of tools, and you've enabled a tool set and an infrastructure and a foundation for which innovation can spring forward. And what I really love about what you've done, which we've been talking about this whole time, is the privacy piece. And that's something that I think is very unique to Oasis and to you all and the project. And so what's interesting to me is, and what I'm excited about is, okay, based on this new innovation and this layer, what else is this going to create? What can the brilliant entrepreneurs and the builders and the developers and the creators and the visionaries and the dreamers and the weird people and the cool people, what can we all come together to build on top of this? And that's the thing that I'm the most excited about here. And that's why it's so exciting that we get to talk now about the this grant program that we have together. So maybe you could talk a little bit about just kind of, and I know you mentioned it a little bit, but just talk a little bit about this idea of the Accelerator Program and what exactly do you mean by the Accelerator? And then maybe you could talk more about the grants available, and just tell people how to get more involved and what the process is, and let's just talk all about it so people know everything about it.
Awesome. I love talking about this subject. Yeah, this is it is indeed a wonderful program. So what we've as you mentioned, the deadline was extended into May 8th. So there's still a bit more over than a week to talk about to apply. So essentially what we do in the acceleration program is we offer a grant for projects that join the accelerator. The maximum amount of the grant is $50,000. So that's for people who join it, teams that join it. That's essentially meant for supporting the development work during the time that they're in the program. But that's not everything we do. Because there's for application developers, for the brilliant engineers out there, like who have the talent of building stuff, being in this industry for quite a while, it's usually like the more talented you are in building, the more your focus is there. But building a successful application requires some other aspects as well. So there's things like marketing, community management, there's finding the right partners, and there's fundraising, all of these things which are outside of just developing the application. So what the acceleration program aims to be is to be the whole package. So we want to give all of these resources, so to give the funds, but then take them to a program that really gives them the opportunity and the edge against everybody else in the space. So how we essentially approach it, we got a initial cohort of partners. So the partners include there's Band, the Oracle provider. We have GSR, Simply VC, 1KX. These are known investment firms. So when it comes to fundraising, there's some support there. When it comes to the infrastructure on the Oracle side, there's support there. We also have a couple of firms that help with tokenomics. We have NFT marketplaces, and we have DEXs, all in this cohort as partners. Because when we looked at it, like what is it like? What kind of a partner does a project really need to succeed in our network? So if they have a token, they need a DEX. If they want to release an NFT set, they need an NFT marketplace, and so on and so forth. So that's what we brought. So we brought together a cohort of partners that support all these companies. And then what we then do is we map out what do the companies really need. Maybe they have, extremely talented engineering team. Maybe they're very good at, marketing, but they don't have a, clear go-to-market strategy. So then it's obvious to us that, this is the area that we can help you guys with. We can bring in an expert that helps you with your go-to-market strategy, somebody who understands a specific landscape, and then helps them get there. Also we do support a lot with our own community, because we want to bring the companies in the accelerator to our we have around, I think, 300,000 followers across different channels. Can be more nowadays. But essentially we have a lot of users that are hungry for applications, and we've noticed that they really want to focus on play to earn gaming, or any kind of blockchain gaming for that matter, and DeFi 2.0. So different composable DeFi tools essentially. So these are the things that we see from our community being like very much asked for and desired. So we wanted to kind of like position the accelerator and find really the most talented games, the most talented blockchain games and the developers, and the best DeFi 2.0 ideas, and really make those into a reality. So what we have now from May 8th until early September, we have this kind of a program where we support the teams, and we essentially, make sure they have everything they need to succeed, launch their first beta, and then, bring it to the community and get the initial users. And then in September, we have a demo day where the teams get to present to a number of investors from our ecosystem fund and outside of it. And in that demo day, we're hoping that the teams will, be able to raise funds. And this is something that we're working also together with them, preparing them to pitch for investors, because for many of these people and the teams, it's actually their first time for going for a seed round. So we understand the trouble that it really takes to, build the product, get the community, the marketing, the BD, and then put everything together and raise the fund to have runway for the next, 2 years. So this is what this program is about.
I love that. I love that. If you look back to entrepreneurship and business building and look at almost every business out there, there are commonalities and there are things that you notice and trends that you can spot, and there are patterns that you can recognize. And one of the things that you'll see if you study really successful people, really successful companies, is that oftentimes they got to where they are because they're extremely good at one, maybe two things. They're very, very, very talented at one thing, and that brings them to wherever they are. And the other things they do okay, but really they have like this one thing that they're spectacular at. And what I love about what you're saying is, because through this accelerator program, you're able to let them focus on what they're excellent at, and you can help bring up their weaknesses and fix those weaknesses for them, and bring in the experts who, Project A's weakness is this expert's strength. And so Project A now doesn't have to worry about that as much, because they have an expert there who can teach them how to do it and help them get there. And so the power of that is extraordinary. I mean, it is absolutely phenomenal. And it gets me so excited, because that's exactly what these businesses and companies need. Yeah, I absolutely love that, and I'm so excited about that. Maybe you can talk a little bit more about why you wanted to, work with DappRadar, and I know you touched it a little bit, but maybe just talk a little bit about why you wanted to work with us, and then let's give people a call to action of how they can get more involved and what the next steps are for them. And yeah, I think that'll be fantastic, just so everybody knows exactly what they need to do next.
That sounds awesome. So, partnering with DappRadar was an obvious choice for us. So we're now, we've released our EVM paradigm. We have a lot of builders in it. But of course, we need a strong partner to index all the applications, to show it to the world. DappRadar is, by obvious stretch, the number one in the space. So, that was the reason that we wanted to partner. And I do have to say, just on my personal note, by actually being the one that did the deal on our end, I mean, your team is so pleasant to work with. Everybody's super positive. They're very professional. It's a breeze to work with, like with the DappRadar folks. I mean, it's been a very good and positive experience. And actually, that experience was the reason we wanted to also go and explore this joint accelerator program, because usually you do something with people who you like to work with and who have a positive vibe. You usually get good results. So this is something that we certainly have been very lucky with part in the joint partnership. Then for people who want to really apply, they can there's in the website, in our Oasis protocol website, and I believe also in the DappRadar portal, there's a place to apply for the from the program. I actually don't have a link for it ready, but so what essentially the process goes like this. So the team has to put an application. The application format is not very long. It's about maybe 10 questions, basic contact details and questions about the app, and then do you need a grant? What are you going to achieve with the grant? And so on. And then essentially, we review these applications, we have a call with the team, and then essentially the decision is pretty fast. Usually in a couple of weeks, once we started the process, we're able to give a decision of accepting into the cohorts, and that's it. So it's pretty straightforward, and yeah, that's how it is.
I love it, and yeah, it's very exciting. And I think that now is the time for folks who are looking to jumpstart and accelerate what you're doing. Now's the time. We extended it, and you better get in, because this opportunity is not going to last forever. So definitely hop in. I want to scope out for a little bit, and I know we're coming up close to time here. Give us a kind of a state of the union right now on crypto, blockchain. What the heck's going on out there? It feels like there's a lot of craziness, a lot of uncertainty, but what's really going on, and what can we expect moving forward into the rest of 2022?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of I feel like there's like a static energy in the markets currently. Like when you look at the space, and we don't like to do any kind of obvious price talk, but you see there's a ranging currently going on. It's pretty clear that there's a lot of geopolitical events that have caused a lot of uncertainty recently, and that the market doesn't really know what's going on. And this is from talking to a lot of people in this industry. That's where they are. So kind of the uncertainty of going up and down is something that's probably in a lot of people's mind. But usually, these are the moments to build, because you don't know. There's always uncertainty. In the long run, of course, the crypto markets are bullish. It's I think blatantly obvious that Web3 technologies are going to replace essentially all of the Web2 technologies, and we're going to see transaction remittances. We're going to see private data. All of these are going to go through some sort of a blockchain system. So that definitely is kind of on a high level. And then one specific thing is definitely the privacy aspect. So my own prediction is that this year, essentially in the last in the past 2 years, the market has been looking for the right applications for privacy, but now we've actually started to see them. So this year, towards the end of this year, I think we're going to see the first like major privacy enabled crypto applications, and that's going to be super exciting. So that's my personal prediction, at least.
I think you're absolutely right. And one thing I think that you said that's prophetic is, meaning, I think you're almost staring into a crystal ball and letting us kind of look over your shoulder there. Prophesizing is in this weird static energy tumultuous era with geopolitical forces that are impacting crypto. Now is absolutely the time to build, because one of two things is going to happen from it. Well, one of three things is going to happen from it. Either we go bear, which means you need to have built and you need to be ready for that, and you need to be strong enough to be able to make it through that time period. Or we stay in this static area, in which case you still need to be strong enough to weather the storm and to make it through that, and to still grow and to still serve your customers and build your community and make it through that. Or we go bull. And if you haven't done the work to prepare yourself to then reap what you've sown, because you haven't really sown that much, and you're not prepared to really take advantage of that, then what's the good of a bull market to you if you haven't prepared for that? So in any case, building is the answer. It's always the answer. It's the only answer. So I think you're absolutely right, and I love I love how you really gave us a good lens to understand what's really going on here, and I think we're going to be very, very excited about specifically what's going on with Oasis coming up in the future. I'm very excited to see what's going to come out of the Accelerator program, and just excited about the future of crypto. So anyways, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. I appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule. I know you have a lot of work to do, a lot of things to do, and a lot of people to serve. So thank you very much. I really do appreciate your time today.
Likewise, thank you so much for having me and Oasis.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So again, I want to thank you, and to everybody watching and listening, thank you very much. This has been DappRadio episode number 2. If you haven't already, go apply to that accelerator program, and let's build, friends. See you on the next episode.